My name is Marian Delacroix. I'm 64 years old, and I never thought I'd be the one telling this kind of story. Welcome to this audio story channel where we share gripping tales of infidelity, betrayal, and raw cheating confessions. If you're into real, emotional, and sometimes shocking relationship stories, you're in the right place. Sit back, listen, and dive into the drama. If this is your first time joining us, don't forget to kindly hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and like our videos. Every click matters. It keeps us motivated to bring you more meaningful stories. If you enjoy our content, we'd love you to share, drop your thoughts or questions in the comments, and stay with us all the way to the end. Your interaction helps build a closer, more connected community. Thank you for being here. I live in a modest house in France. If you'd asked me a year ago, I would have told you life was already behind me. I once believed my life had settled into a quiet rhythm. I woke every morning at the same hour, brewed my tea, and tended to my hydrangeas, watching them bloom in the muted sunlight like fragments of forgotten dreams. Charles, my husband of over 4 decades, was a distant presence, his silence filling the gaps where love used to live. Our marriage was a collection of shared history and polite routines, the passion long since drained away. I told myself that was enough. That I was too old for change, for new beginnings. But deep down, a dull ache of loneliness had taken root. I never imagined that the walls around my heart could be breached again, let alone by a secret that would shatter my world. Then came the confession, unexpected and cold, like winter sweeping through an open window. Charles admitted his betrayal. Not once. Not a mistake. But a betrayal stretching over 7 years. 7 years of lies while I lived in quiet ignorance. I remember the exact moment Charles spoke the words, the weight of them crashing into the stillness of our kitchen. He sat across from me, hands trembling slightly, eyes tired but resolute. "Marian, I have to tell you something. I've been unfaithful. For years." I wanted to scream, to cry, to demand answers, but the shock froze me. The man I loved, or thought I loved, had built a secret life behind my back, eroding everything we had. The betrayal wasn't just about the women. It was about every moment he chose silence over truth, comfort over honesty. I felt like a ghost in my own home, invisible, irrelevant. But in that moment of shattering despair, something unexpected happened. The pain didn't just break me, it awakened me. For the first time in years, I felt the spark of anger, the pulse of life under the numbness. I was no longer willing to fade away quietly. I needed to escape the suffocating silence of my marriage. I packed a small bag and told Sophie I needed a break, some space to think. My daughter was warm and understanding, inviting me into her home without hesitation. I thought this change of scenery would be a balm for my broken heart, but I couldn't have anticipated the storm that would follow. Sophie's husband, Liam, had always been kind to me, always helpful, always respectful. I had never looked at him twice, beyond the usual mother-in-law and son-in-law politeness. But now, in this fragile state, I found myself noticing him differently. The way his eyes lingered a moment too long when he thought I wasn't watching. The gentle way he touched my arm when offering support. I tried to dismiss the flutter of something forbidden, but it kept growing, and I couldn't ignore it. One humid summer night, after Sophie had gone to bed, Liam and I found ourselves alone on the back porch. The warm air was thick with the scent of jasmine, and I was drinking wine I shouldn't have been drinking. We talked about everything and nothing, the stress at work, the fractures in my marriage, the weight of loneliness. Then, silence. Heavy, charged silence. His hand brushed mine. I didn't pull away. Instead, I leaned in as his lips met mine softly at first, hesitant. It was a kiss that held years of longing neither of us admitted aloud. My heart hammered, and the world shifted beneath me. I knew what this was, dangerous, wrong, and yet, in that moment, it was the first time in a long while I felt truly alive. That kiss was the spark that ignited everything I thought had died. After that night, the dam broke. Liam and I were drawn to each other with an urgency neither of us wanted to name. Our stolen moments were filled with whispered confessions, gentle touches, and the intoxicating thrill of secrecy. The sex was slow at first, careful, almost reverent, as if we were both afraid to break the fragile thread connecting us. But with every encounter, the passion grew fiercer, more desperate. He made me feel seen again, not as an aging woman cast aside by her own life, but as something wild, alive, and worth desiring. Liam became my teacher in a language I'd long forgotten, the language of touch, of love, of raw emotion. Each night spent in his arms erased a little more of the pain Charles's betrayal had carved into my soul. For the first time in decades, I wasn't just surviving, I was living. What would you do if you were in Marian's shoes? After a lifetime of loyalty, betrayal shattered her world, and in its wreckage, she found something forbidden, but alive. Was it healing? Was it selfish? Or was it both? Would you call it love, or just another form of betrayal? Let me know in the comments. Do you think Marian was wrong, or finally free? The mornings after those stolen nights were the hardest. Liam would slip away quietly before Sophie woke, leaving me tangled in sheets and a mess of swirling emotions. Guilt crept in like a shadow, whispering that what we were doing was wrong, unforgivable. I pictured Sophie's trusting smile, the way she'd confide in me about her dreams and fears. How could I betray her so deeply? But alongside the guilt was a fierce new fire, one I hadn't felt in years. For the first time, I craved attention and touch, laughter and conversation that didn't revolve around broken promises. Liam's presence was a balm, and yet a poison. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman caught between past loyalty and present desire. The lines on my face told stories of decades lived, but my heart raced like a reckless teenager's. One afternoon, as I helped Sophie with dinner, Liam caught my eye from across the room. There was something unreadable in his gaze, a mixture of regret, longing, and something darker. It made me question everything. How far were we willing to go? And what would happen if the fragile illusion shattered? It was a Saturday morning when it happened, something small, almost nothing, but it changed everything. Sophie was making pancakes in the kitchen, her hair tied up in that careless bun she always wore on weekends. Liam sat at the table, scrolling through his phone, his coffee untouched. I stepped in with the clean laundry folded in my arms, trying to keep my expression neutral. But for just a second, I caught his eye. Too long. Sophie noticed. It was a Saturday morning when it happened, something small, almost nothing, but it changed everything. Sophie was making pancakes in the kitchen, her hair tied up in that careless bun she always wore on weekends. Liam sat at the table, scrolling through his phone, his coffee untouched. I stepped in with the clean laundry folded in my arms, trying to keep my expression neutral. But for just a second, I caught his eye. Too long. Sophie noticed. She didn't say anything, but I saw her eyebrows twitch, just slightly, as her eyes darted between us. A flicker of something uncertain passed over her face before she forced a smile and returned to stirring the batter. My stomach dropped. That moment haunted me for the rest of the day. Later, Liam came to find me in the garden while Sophie was napping. She saw something, I whispered, barely trusting my own voice. He looked down, jaw tense. Maybe. But she didn't say a word. If she suspected anything, she'd tear this house apart. His words sent a chill down my spine. We weren't just playing with fire, we were standing in the center of it, daring it to consume us. And yet, as he reached out to touch my cheek, I didn't pull away. I wanted him. Still. But now, the fear had begun to bloom, quietly, like rot beneath polished wood. That night, I tried to stay in my room. I lit a lavender candle, curled up with a book, and even left my door slightly ajar as if to remind myself to behave. But it didn't matter. When the house fell into silence and the wine kicked in, my resolve crumbled. A soft knock at the door was all it took. Liam stepped inside, slow and deliberate. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. His eyes said everything: fear, craving, defiance. He shut the door behind him and walked toward me, and I stood frozen, caught between want and shame. Then he kissed me, and the world unraveled again. His hands moved over me like they remembered every part of me from our last time. And I let them. I wanted to be wanted, to feel that wildness again. I knew it was selfish, dangerous, but when he touched me, I felt power I hadn't known since my youth. Our clothes fell to the floor without hesitation. He took me on the edge of the bed, slow at first, then with a heat that made me gasp into his neck. After, we lay in silence, breathing in the dark, his fingers tracing patterns over my stomach. What are we doing? I whispered. I don't know if I wanted an answer or a lie. Liam didn't respond. He just kissed my forehead and pulled me closer. And in that silence, I realized something terrifying: I didn't want to stop. Even if it ruined everything. Sunday morning felt different. Sophie was quiet during breakfast, her words shorter, her smile thinner. She barely looked at Liam, and when she did, there was something cold in her eyes, something calculating. I kept my head down, stirring my tea with too much focus, trying to silence the pounding in my chest. Had she heard something last night? Had we been careless? After Sophie went to run errands, I noticed my scarf, folded neatly over the back of the guest room chair. A soft silk one, the deep wine-colored one I only wore in the evenings. My blood ran cold. I hadn't left it there. I had it on last night. In Liam's room. God. Had she seen it? Had she moved it? I confronted Liam later, behind the garden shed while Sophie tended to the tomato plants. Did she say anything to you? He shook his head, but I saw it in his face. He was nervous. She's quieter than usual, he admitted. And she asked if you sleep with the door open because she thought she heard movement in the hallway last night. My throat tightened. It was unraveling. I could feel it. One thread at a time. I'll leave soon, I whispered. I've stayed too long. But Liam's hand gripped my wrist gently. Don't. Not yet. And like a fool, I stayed. Even as suspicion grew roots in Sophie's silence. Even as the guilt thickened in my lungs. Because some twisted part of me needed him, needed to feel desired, needed to believe I hadn't completely disappeared inside someone else's betrayal. But I could sense the shift coming, and whatever it was, it wouldn't be gentle. I used to love mirrors. In my youth, they reflected confidence, grace, even vanity. But now, I avoid them. That morning, I caught a glimpse of myself in the hallway mirror as I passed it. My hair still tousled from sleep, a faint bruise on my collarbone, Liam's touch lingering like a ghost on my skin. I barely recognized the woman looking back at me. She was no longer just a wife. Or a mother. She was something else now, something caught in a lie, wrapped in longing, and slipping down a path she couldn't quite stop walking. My chest ached, not from shame, but from the terrifying truth: I wasn't sure I wanted to turn back. Later, as I cleaned up the guest room, I found Sophie's perfume bottle on the dresser, something she never left there. It was a message. Subtle. Intentional. Her way of reminding me this was her home. Her marriage. I stared at the bottle for a long time before slowly picking it up, uncapping it, and pressing the sprayer gently. The familiar floral scent filled the room. I stood there, breathing it in like punishment. That evening, at dinner, the air between us was ice. Sophie barely spoke. Liam tried to act normal, but his eyes kept darting toward me. And me? I was drowning in guilt with a fork in my hand. When Sophie finally excused herself to take a call, Liam whispered, "She knows." I didn't ask how. I just nodded. I had seen it, too. We had crossed a line, and the wall of secrecy was beginning to crumble. There was no going back now. Only through. And whatever was waiting on the other side of this was going to destroy someone. Maybe all of us. It was Sophie who said it first. Over breakfast, she laughed bitterly and pushed her eggs around the plate. "You know what's funny?" she said, not really smiling. "Liam hasn't touched me in weeks. Every time I try, he says he's tired. Work stress, he claims." She sipped her coffee slowly. "But I've seen him come home with more energy than ever." I froze. She didn't look at me directly, but her words sliced with precision, each one a knife dressed as a joke. I couldn't meet her eyes. Instead, I pretended to be concerned. "Maybe it's just a phase," I offered weakly. "Men his age." But her laugh interrupted me, sharp and hollow. "Please, Marian. Don't tell me you believe that." And then she stood and walked away, leaving me at the table with a cup of coffee and a heart that felt like it was being squeezed from the inside. That night, I heard them through the wall. Not moaning. Not love. Just her voice, low and angry. "You never want me anymore. What is going on with you, Liam?" His reply was muffled, but I caught a few words: "Just tired, not now, don't start." The silence that followed was louder than anything I had ever heard. I sat on my bed, gripping the edge of the mattress, knowing that I was the reason her marriage was falling apart. I had become the other woman. Worse, I was her mother's star. And yet, when Liam slipped into my room hours later, wordless, kissed my shoulder, and climbed into my bed, I didn't stop him. Because part of me believed this was love. But deeper down, I feared it was something far more dangerous: addiction. When Sophie finally confronted me, I wasn't ready. She stood in the doorway of my room one evening, eyes blazing with a mix of hurt and anger I hadn't seen before. "Marian, I know something is wrong. I see it in Liam. I feel it in this house." Her voice cracked. Are you involved?" I shook my head so fiercely it hurt. "No," I whispered, my voice breaking under the weight of my own lies. "You're imagining things. Liam and we're just in-laws. Nothing more." But even as I said it, my heart was screaming otherwise. How could I deny it? The nights we spent together, the stolen touches, the secret whispers? I tried to convince myself it was just loneliness or a moment of weakness. But the truth clawed at me relentlessly. I told myself Sophie was overreacting. That Liam was just tired from work. That I was a good mother and a faithful woman who had made one terrible mistake but could stop now, could pull back before everything shattered. And yet, every time Liam brushed past me or sent that half-smile, I felt my resolve crumble. Denial became my shield. It wrapped around me like a cloak against the cold reality threatening to consume us all. I told myself I wasn't hurting anyone. I told myself I still had control. But deep inside, I knew I was lying. And sometimes, denial feels like the only way to survive. The silence between us was unbearable. One evening, as the house lay dark and heavy with unspoken truths, Liam found me sitting alone on the back porch, the night air cool against my skin. His footsteps were quiet but purposeful, and when he finally sat beside me, I felt a tremor of both comfort and fear. He didn't say anything at first. Just stared out into the dark like searching for answers in the stars. Then, finally, he spoke, his voice low and hesitant. "Marian, I can't keep living like this. Every time I look at Sophie, I feel like a traitor. But when I'm with you, I forget the guilt. For a little while." His words hit me like a wave crashing on the shore, beautiful and devastating all at once. I wanted to tell him to stop, to turn back, to save what little was left of their marriage. But the truth was, I was as lost as he was. "I don't know what we're doing, Liam," I admitted, my voice trembling. "But I know I can't live without it now." He looked at me then, eyes shining with something I hadn't seen before: pain, yes, but also desperation. "We're tearing a family apart," he said. "And maybe ourselves too." I swallowed hard, tears stinging my eyes. The night around us felt suffocating, as if the walls of the house were closing in. The whispered confession between us was a fragile thread, binding us in this dangerous dance we couldn't stop. I wanted to believe there was a way out. But deep down, I knew the spiral was only tightening. Days blurred into nights, and the fragile silence between us began to crack under the weight of what we were doing. Sophie's eyes, once filled with warmth and trust, had hardened into something colder, accusation and suspicion lingering in every glance. I could feel the walls closing in, the house no longer a sanctuary but a battlefield where secrets whispered in every corner. Liam was distant. The man I thought I knew was fading, replaced by someone caught between desire and guilt. He stopped coming to me with the same passion, his touches lighter, his kisses more hesitant. I wondered if the guilt was finally winning, or if he was slipping away entirely. One evening, Sophie confronted Liam in the living room, her voice steady but edged with pain. "I know there's someone else," she said, eyes blazing. "I don't know who. But I feel it. I'm not blind." Liam didn't deny it. Instead, he looked away, shame written all over his face. Later, he came to me, his hands trembling. "This is destroying us all," he whispered. "We can't keep going like this." But I didn't know how to stop. The love, the longing, it was a tangled web I couldn't escape. And in the silence that followed, I realized something terrifying: this wasn't just about us anymore. It was about the family, the lives we were breaking with every stolen moment. The foundation was cracking. And soon, everything would come tumbling down. The days that followed felt like walking through a storm without shelter. Sophie's silence was sharper than any argument we could have had. Each look, each word left unsaid was a weapon. At family dinners, the tension was so thick you could almost slice it with a knife. Liam and I exchanged glances that held both longing and regret, but Sophie never broke the icy barrier she had built around herself. One evening, I found Sophie alone in the garden, her hands clenched around a wilted rose. I wanted to reach out, to say something, anything to break the silence, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I watched her from a distance, feeling the weight of everything I had done crashing down like a tidal wave. Liam barely spoke to me anymore. When he did, his voice was tired, burdened. "We're fighting a war with no winners," he said quietly one night as we lay in bed, the space between us vast and cold. "Sophie's hurt. You're hurting. And I'm lost." I nodded, tears threatening to spill. "Maybe we all are." That night, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I wondered if love could survive this. If forgiveness was possible. Or if we were doomed to watch everything we built crumble beneath the weight of betrayal. The silent war had begun, and none of us knew how to end it. Now, I want to hear from you. Imagine yourself in Marian's shoes, caught in a forbidden love that's tearing a family apart. Or in Liam's, torn between guilt and desire. What would you do? Would you fight to fix what's broken or walk away before everything shatters? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story if it moved you. Your voice matters, and your story might help someone else who's struggling in silence.